Mas Adit,
Ya.
ada kelas lagi ya?
Enggak ada. Yang lain mungkin nanti bisa.
Okay, Professor, can we start now?
Thank you.
Okay, well, good morning. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, my students.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, good afternoon from Indonesia and good evening from New Zealand, my students. Today, alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajmain amma ba'du. Well, thank you so much for coming, my beloved students. Today we are going to have the visiting professor program, and for today's we are going to focus on the course of pragmatic and linguistic. Pragmatic. Sorry, I forget the name. Pragmatics and semantic. Okay, semantic and pragmatic. Sorry, Professor. I little bit forget the name of this class. Semantic and pragmatic, yeah. And hopefully for today's agenda, we are going to have the class with Professor Min, who come from Otago University. Hope that everyone today will have a wonderful time to have a discussion regarding to the material, regarding to the pragmatics, and everyone here will have the new insight, new knowledge regarding to the pragmatic and also the semantic itself. So basically, if you have any question, you may prepare yourself from now on. And during the listening from the presentation from Professor Min, you guys are having the question and session answer. And now, before we continue any further for our discussion, let's just start our program for today by reciting Basmalah together. 1, 2, 3, start, go.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for Professor Min for joining today. We do really happy for having you today, and I hope that we are going to have a wonderful time having the discussion regarding this pragmatic material with you and also with the students here in our department. As you know, we always invited to visiting professor for each semester, and for this semester we are very happy for having you here in this course, pragmatic semantic. And hopefully it's going to be the good insight for all of the students here in our department. And before we continue, I would like to, before I give the time for Professor Min, I would like to, to inform all the students here a little bit information regarding our visiting professor today, which is Dr. Minh Nguyen. Is that right? How do I pronounce that?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm afraid if I have mistaken in making a pronunciation. Well, our visiting professor today will be Dr. Minh Nguyen. Actually, Professor Dr. Min, Professor Min. She is a teacher in Otago University, and she took the MED, Master of Education of TESOL in QUT, Queensland University of Technology. Is that right, Professor?
Right, yeah.
Yes. And after that, Professor Min here took the PhD Language Teaching and Learning from the Auckland University in New Zealand. And right now, Professor Min was busy teaching in in Otago University in New Zealand. And Professor Min is an expert in applied linguists and also language teacher educator. And her research interests include pragmatic and interactional competence, language learning and teaching, and heritage language maintenance. And we can see a lot of publication from Professor Nguyen. Maybe it's impossible for me to read them all for today. It will be a lot of pages that I have here. However, one of the current research publication from Professor Nguyen, Professor Min here, is the conversation analysis and membership categorization analysis. Okay, is that right, Professor?
Yeah.
So basically, Professor Min here is an expert of pragmatics. So that's why for today, it will be the great opportunity for all of you guys, for all the students here, that you guys are having this kind of discussion with Professor Min here. And hopefully it's going to be the best time for us to learn from Professor Min, sorry. And without any further ado, I would like to give the time for Professor Min for having this class. Thank you, Professor Min.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harry, for a very nice introduction. Yeah, I mean, it's my pleasure to give a series of lectures on pragmatics, which is an area of research that I have been interested in for more than 20 years now.
Oh,
So you may want to know that my PhD thesis conducted at the University of Auckland under the supervision of Helen Westerman and Rob Ellis was about pragmatics and second language teaching and learning. So I feel very happy that I could be here today and share with your students, right, what I know about pragmatics. Yeah, so let me share the screen and my slides. All right. Can you all see them?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Miss.
Right, okay. I think I will just give me a minute. I think
okay, please take your time. No problem, Professor.
Yeah. I think it's frozen from my side, but
maybe you can.
Let me just open it again.
Yes, you can open it again.
Sharing and then do it again. Quite interesting.
If you need assistance, I'll be here.
Thank you. I think I should be fine. Something wrong with my. It just frozen. Everything is frozen.
Oh, everything.
Yeah. Give me a minute. I think.
Yes, take your time, Professor.
So, and hope that is working now. All right. All right. So in today's lecture, I'm going to give an introduction to the field of pragmatics. So we're going to discuss what pragmatics is about and a few key concepts that people who work in pragmatics often work with. And then in the next few lectures, I'm going to talk about different theories in pragmatics, like theories of speech acts, theories of politeness, and conversational implications. And then I'll touch a bit on cross-cultural pragmatics. So pragmatics across languages and cultures, as well as teaching and learning second language pragmatics. So to start, I would like to put you in pairs and then try out a role play, right, to see how it goes. So I'm going to use breakout room to put you in pairs. But before that, can I just send you this document? So I'm going to send it, all right, in chat. All right, so I just paste the link here. Can you all see it?
Yes, we can.
Right, so if you open it, this is the activity that I would like you to do. Just do the first one, okay? Just ignore B, just do A first.
Okay.
Okay, so A is a scenario.
Satu bisa duduk di sini untuk operator.
Right, can you see it? Right, so I would like you to work with your partner in breakout room, breakout room, and then try to role play it, and then after that reflect on the scenario. Okay, so for the speaker, what exactly did you say to your partner? What did you mean when you said it? How did your partner respond? And did her response show that she understood what you mean? And then for the partner, what do you think your friend mean when answering your question? And what made you think that was what he or she meant? All right. So yes, I'm going to use a breakout room function.
Okay.
And then just, assign manually, not assign automatically. And how many people are here? Yeah.
We have 130 students.
Right. So I think we need about
60?
60.
60 group?
More than that, right? 66, I guess. Oh,
66?
I don't think it allow us. No, I think 50 is the most.
50 is the most. Okay.
Okay. Right. Oh, okay.
Can you make it as a co-host, ma'am?
Sorry.
Can you create breakout room as a co-host, or do you need some help?
It's okay. Yes. So I'm going to open all the room. If there are more than 2 people in the room, then one of the person could be the observer. So you take notes of what the other 2 people, all right, speak. Can we just do it for about 5 minutes and then we come back to discuss? All right. Okay.
Okay, students. Do you understand what you should do? If you understand, please write I understand in the chat room.
That's a very good technique. All right.
Do you understand, guys? Hello, my students.
Okay, so maybe I write. Yeah, great. Okay.
One student understand. How about the others? We still have 130. How about the others? Do you understand what you should do? Please, you may write down I understand in the chat room if you understand. Only Raihan here who write down. How about the others? Okay. Everyone. Not really. Maybe can you repeat once more, maybe, Professor Min?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Am I speaking too fast? Do I need to slow down a bit?
How about it's good for me. How about the others, the students?
Right. Okay, so I have just now typed in the chat room that can you just click on the link here? Okay, it should open up a scenario. All right. So this is the scenario.
Okay.
So this is a scenario. Okay. Imagine that you and your partner were going to a party together. You're good friends of the same and of the same age. When you came to pick her up, you saw her wearing a new jacket. Before you both got out of the house, she asked you, "Do you think that I should wear this jacket to the party?" You thought that her jacket did not match her trousers, but you did not want to hurt her feelings. So what would you say in this situation?
Okay.
I would like you to role play the scenario, to act out, okay, the scenario with your partner. And then after that, reflect on the questions here, okay? Now, if there are more than 2 people in the breakout room, one of the persons, right, would be the observer. So you observe how the other 2 people do the role plays, okay, and then help them to reflect on the questions here. I hope that is clear enough.
Everybody's understand? If you understand, please write I understand in the chat room.
I think they're already in.
Yes, they understand, sir. Man.
Okay, good. Yeah. I think there are a few more people here who are not in the room yet. Okay, so. Oh, wow.
I can help you to put the room.
Excuse me. Yeah. Excuse me. We are in winter now, so.
Oh, that's. I'm sure that should be.
Yeah,
really
it's quite cold here. How is the weather like in Indonesia?
Hot all the time here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. We have only hot. We always have summer here.
Oh, I see. That's nice. So it's like Singapore.
Yes, like Singapore, like Indonesia, like Malaysia.
Yeah.
So everybody should join the breakout room now, man.
I think so. Do you want to go around and see how they like
Yes.
visit each room to see? Yeah, I'm going to do that as well.
Students, please go to the rooms now. I repeat once more for everyone here. Please go to the breakout room now. So everyone who's still in the main room, I repeat, please go to the breakout room now and have a discussion with your friends, with your partners. Do you understand? So everyone who's still here, it means that you still do not do the instruction. If you're still here, I repeat, please go to the breakout room that has been assigned for you. We still have 37 students here. Raihan Rizky, why are you still here? Please go to the breakout room.
I went to breakout room, but I just alone, sir.
Oh, you're still alone. You can go to the new room. Can you go there? Can you choose by yourself?
Ini room saya cuma room 14 saja, Pak.
Oke.
Ya. Saya coba masuk lagi.
We're just waiting for people to come back from their breakout room. Right? I think they
Yes, it will close in 22 seconds now, ma'am.
right. Yeah.
They will be automatically come back to the main room in 15 seconds from now. And I see some of the students have the problem regarding to maybe the connection, ma'am. So that's why they just get out of the Zoom and then get in again. So they already get out from the breakout room.
Right. Yes, I didn't. Did you have a chance to hear what people said in the breakout room?
I met only one student in my room, and when I check, so that's why I haven't seen any chance to have a listening for what they're doing.
I see. Okay. Right. Right. So is everyone here now?
Yes.
Most of us already here, man.
Okay, good. All right. So did you have a chance to role play with your partner, with your friends? What do you think? I mean, if we look at the questions here, does anyone want to share your ideas or your answers to the questions here?
Raihan?
In the last breakout room, I don't have a friends in my room, so I just sit by myself.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Anyone else? Did anyone have a chance to role play it? And do you have any comments on the questions? Any ideas that you want to share with the group?
Nosa Violeta? You here? I think they still have problem for practicing, ma'am.
I see. No problem. I'm gonna share the examples that I elicited from some Kiwi speakers, right? Some New Zealanders. So this is one of the scenarios that I tried in one of my studies, right? And I gave it to second language learners, international students in New Zealand and New Zealand speakers as well. And so you see that NS mean native speaker, right? So this is the scenarios that two native speakers role played, right? They acted out. So A said, "Do you think I should wear this jacket to the party?" And B said, "I don't know." A, "Do you like my jacket?" B, "I don't know. It's all right." A, "Do you think it goes with this pants?" "I'm not really sure. It just doesn't match." Right. So what are you seeing here is in the first line. Okay, when I ask, "Do you think I should wear this jacket to the party?" B say, "I don't know," although the scenario indicated that he should know, right? So if you go back to the scenario, he didn't like the jacket and he didn't think that the jacket matched her trousers, but because he didn't want to hurt her feelings, so his answer is, "I don't know," right? And he didn't give the straightforward answer until he was pressed to say so. All right. So the second scenario we talk about that later on. But anyway, what we can see here is we often communicate more than what the words or the phrases of our utterances literally mean. Okay, so when we say "I don't know," it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't know. Sometimes we say we don't know just because we want to avoid giving a direct answer in order to avoid hurting people's feelings. All right. So meaning, you can see that meaning is often expressed beyond the surface. Okay. And surprisingly or unsurprisingly, we nevertheless get understood by other people. And how possible is that? Because the context is the key thing here. We draw on the context in order to make inferences, okay, about what the other person means. All right. So different social cultural conventions. I mean, but in the same context, people of different cultures may produce and interpret language in different ways. Okay, so maybe in the Indonesian culture, you would say a different thing when you want to try to avoid, answering a question directly. But in the Vietnamese culture or in the New Zealand culture, it might be different. So what all these kind of things are the concerns of pragmatics. Okay, so what is pragmatics about? Pragmatics help us to answer questions such as why we communicate the way that we do. Okay, why do we say I don't know when we really don't, we know the answer, but we still say I don't know, right? So why do we communicate the way that we do? And how is it that we can still understand one another, even though we are all different individuals? Okay.
Paling males na sa pertanyaan. Napakaran sing takok ini yo.
Sorry, what is that? Yeah. Can I go on? Right. But I'm not saying that miscommunication or communication breakdown doesn't happen. It does happen all the time, even among people of the same background and for a reason, right? It happens for a reason. Okay. So when we learn pragmatics, we can explain why people communicate in a certain way. What is the reason behind that? We also understand why we would want to speak differently to different people and in different contexts. Okay, when would it be more appropriate, for example, to address your professor as professor? Okay, and when might it be a better idea to just call her by her first name, for example, right? Why do we speak differently in different roles? So do you speak to your friends differently as compared to speaking to your boss or speaking to your parents? Okay, so we speak differently in different roles, and why is it? Okay, why do people from, and also how we use language to index social relationships, exert power, or to manipulate, to challenge, to change ideas? How do we persuade people? Okay, how do we express our ideas? How do we show that we are in a more powerful position? Okay, by using language. For example, if you think about the kind of language that your teacher uses in the classroom, is very different from the way that a normal person, right, would communicate in daily life, right? And why is it? Because of the different, power relationships. Okay. And also, why do people from different cultures communicate differently? Now, think about, for example, ordering a coffee. Okay, in my culture, for example, it would be very typical that people would go to a cafe and say, "Give me a coffee." All right, that would be absolutely common. But for British people, for example, they would not rather say, "Give me a coffee." They would say, "Can I have a coffee, please?" All right. And think about, giving compliments and responding to compliments as well. Why do Chinese people think that it is rude to accept a compliment? Okay, but maybe Americans people think that it is rude to reject a compliment right away. So pragmatics will help us to understand and to answer all these questions. Right. So let's look at some more formal definitions of pragmatics. So pragmatic is the study of interpretation of meaning, or the study of the use of context to make inferences about meaning. So you can see that I've highlighted a few phrases here, right? The important phrases in pragmatics. Context is very important because it helps us to make, inferences about what people mean. All right. There's another definition that I really like, and I think it summarizes so well, okay, the areas of concerns in pragmatics. So pragmatic is the study of language from the point of view of users, okay, users, especially of the choices that they make, the constraints that they encounter in using language in social interactions, and the effects that use of language has on other participants in the act of communications. All right. So those are the keywords in pragmatics. Firstly, pragmatic is about users' meaning. It's not about sentences. It's not about the meaning, just the meaning, the literal meaning of sentences or utterances, but it is the meaning that is conveyed by language users and interpreted by language users. Okay. And there are choices. Okay. There are choices. We make choices in communication. And there's a reason why we make choices, right? That we do. There are constraints on what we can say to whom in what situation as well. Okay. And pragmatic is to do with language use in social interactions. So use of language as social actions. And the way that we use language can create an effect, right, on our interlocutor, on other participants in communications. All right, so let's look at each of the key phrases here, right? So firstly, language users. Now, as I said before, pragmatic is concerned with the speaker and hearer meaning in interaction. That means the meaning that is conveyed, the intended meaning that is conveyed by the speaker, okay, and interpreted by the hearer. And this meaning could be very different from the literal meaning of the sentences, right? And in pragmatics, we are interested in what is said to mean what is not said, meaning we're interested in the intended meaning of the speaker rather than just the literal meaning of the utterances or sentences. So I give you an example here. If you take a look at this conversation between two people, and A say, that was an excellent movie, and B say, well, and then there's a little pause there, okay? 0.2 means like 2 second pause. Well, I thought, not I think, I thought the cinematography was spectacular and some parts were brilliant. So what does B mean here? Did B agree with A that was an excellent movie or not? Any ideas?
No, ma'am.
No. Why? How do you know that? How do you know that B didn't agree with A?
She said that some parts were brilliant, so it means that not all the parts of the movie is brilliant.
Excellent. All right. So that's an excellent answer. Yes. So you can see that B used a lot of like hints here, okay, to indirectly convey his meaning. Firstly, he say, well is a discourse marker, right? It marks hesitations. So we usually say well to preface a disagreement because we want, disagreement is very face-threatening, right? It is opposing, and we don't want to hurt people's feeling by disagree with them so strongly and so directly. So we usually preface our disagreement with well to show that we are really hesitating, and then there's a pause as well. So we don't produce disagreement immediately, right? We pause a little bit, okay, to show that I really don't want to disagree here. And then we say, I thought instead of I think, in order to soften what we're trying to say. And then we say some parts were brilliant. So not everything was brilliant, right? So you can see that pragmatic is concerned with what is meant by what is said. Okay, so what is said here on the surface doesn't show that it is a disagreement. But if you think about, like the meaning behind what is said, then it is a disagreement, right? This is another example. I ask, are you free tonight? And B say, well, I was planning on getting home early. And A say, oh, okay. Well, see you bright and early tomorrow. Okay. So what is happening here? What are people doing? Any answer? Any ideas here? What are A and B are trying to do here? Is it just a chat, or is it something else? Any ideas?
A asked B to maybe go out in the night, but B refused it and said that he have a plan to getting home
That's
early.
very good. Yeah, that's an excellent answer. Thank you so much. Yes. So what they are trying to do here, it's just not, are you free tonight? It's not just a question. It's not just an information question, but it's what we call a pre-invitation. okay? Something that you do before you invite someone, right? So it's a testing of the waters, okay, so to speak. And why do we do that? So that we can give B an option to accept or to, you know, to say, okay, go ahead, invite me, or to reject it, right? And to avoid us, you know, speakers, right, being too disappointed if B refuses it, right? So I say, are you free tonight? It's not an information question, but it's a pre-invitation. And B say, well, I was planning on getting home. So B actually understood the intended meaning conveyed by A, right? And it is a refusal, actually, right? And I understand that and decide not to continue with the actual invitation here. So yeah, so that's what people do in language, in communication, right? We use language forms in order to convey our speech intention, our communicative intentions, and that's what pragmatic is concerned with. How people, you know, use language in social context, how they express their communicative intentions. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Okay. Sorry. Right. Okay. So choice and constraint. Now, there's always constraints on what we can say to whom and what we cannot say to whom in what situations. Okay, so the pragmatic is to do with knowledge of what to say, what not to say, to whom, in what situations. If we think about making a request in English, for example, there's a range of options of how we could make a request. We can say, call a taxi, please. Or will you call a taxi, please? Or would you call a taxi, please? Or would you mind calling a taxi, please? Or I wonder if you would mind calling a taxi, please. Or, oh dear, we're running really late right now, right? Without even saying, can you call a taxi, please? So there's a range of options of how we can say things. And I believe that it's true in all different languages. So what we decide to say can vary according to different contexts, right? Different social and contextual factors. Now, in pragmatics, these guys, Brown and Levison, right, identify at least 3 major factors that may affect how we say things, okay, in communication. And they call this power, distance, and imposition, right? Power means, you know, the relative power between the two people. So are you talking to someone who has a higher social status than you or a lower social status than you? So a conversation between 2 colleagues, for example, meaning, you know, involves people of equal social status. Whereas a conversation where, you know, a junior colleague produces a request, you know, to a boss, for example, right? The power is actually not equal, right? There's a power difference between the speakers there. And what we would say to our boss will be very different, right? From what we would say to our junior colleagues, for example. And then we have distance as well. Distance means the degree of familiarity between, you know, the interlocutors in conversation. So how well you know them. Are you familiar with them? Are you family members? Are you close friends? Or are you just colleagues or classmates or new acquaintances or even strangers, okay, on the street? Right. And also imposition, meaning the degree of inconvenience or trouble that you would cause, okay, the interlocutor when you know, produces a linguistic action, for example, when you make a request to someone, okay? So let's say, for example, if we borrow, you know, like a pen from a friend, you could just say, can I borrow your pen for a second? Whereas if you borrow $100 from your friends, you can't just come up to them and say, hey, can I borrow, you know, $100 from you, right? You need to preface your request and give reason and promise to return the money as soon as you can, right? So you have to say more. So depending on the power difference, okay, between the interlocutors, depending on the degree of familiarity, our social relationship with our interlocutors, how well we know them. And depending on the degree of imposition that our action, right, our linguistic action costs on our interlocutors, that we will choose our language accordingly. But remember that the power, the distance, and the impositions can be perceived quite differently in different cultures. Okay, so in many Asian cultures, for example, power may also involve age differences as well. Okay, so the elderly, right, has more power than the young people, or family relationships. Like for example, parents usually have more power than children, even when the children are already grown up, right? So depending on different cultures, then the power, the distance, and the imposition may be perceived quite differently. And that is how, that is why cross-cultural communication can be so difficult, and miscommunication may happen when people from diverse cultural backgrounds communicate, just because of their different perceptions of power, of distance, and imposition. An example would be in New Zealand culture, for example, is very typical, or it's very common that a student would address their professor by the professor's first name, if the professor initiates, or allows that, right? So it's very, very, very common that my student would call me Minh instead of Dr. Nguyen, for example. But in Asian culture, okay, that might be a bit different. So here, the perception of power difference between a student and a professor can be quite different, right? In Asian context and New Zealand context, for example. Or in terms of positions, in my culture, in Vietnamese culture, for example, making a request is not really imposing, right? You ask people to help you all the time, or giving advice is not considered imposing. We even consider that, if you are a kind or a good person, you would give advice to people, right? But in New Zealand culture, for example, you don't usually give advice unless you are asked. Your advice is solicited, right? So people don't want unsolicited advice. So when you give advice, you need to, like hedge your advice using linguistic forms, such as, to soften the force of your advice. Whereas in the Vietnamese culture, we give advice in a very direct manner. So we just say, you should do this and you should do that. Okay. So yeah, so what we say, okay, depends very much on the context in which we communicate. Okay, consequences, effects. What we say can create an effect on peoples. All right, this is very clear. Okay, so when we say to someone, for example, can you pass the salt? Okay, the effect would be they pass you the salt. Here you go. But when you say things that is inappropriate, okay, that may reflect badly on you as a person. So I recall this article, when Trump, when president, the ex-president of the USA, Mr. Donald Trump visited France, and then he paid the president of France's wife, right, a compliment, and he said, "You are in such good shape." Okay, and then newspapers and news media just criticize him for that, saying that Trump criticized for creepy comments on Brigitte Macron. Okay, so what you said actually created an effect on the people who receive your message. This is another example that I usually cited when I teach email communication. So this is an example from Cogestis 2016. All right, so this is an email from a student to a professor. Okay, take a look. All right, so what do you think about this email? How do you think the professor would feel when they receive this email?
Maybe the professor will feel honored because he used the polite words.
Are you sure?
Okay. All right, interesting. All right, so I'm going to share with you okay, the findings of the of the study. This is a very interesting study. Okay, so Kogesides sent this email to a number of lecturers, okay, British lecturers, I mean English-speaking lecturers, and asked them to rate the emails in terms of politeness and appropriateness. And this is the comments, if you take a look. All right, the lecturers' comments or adjectives that they use to describe the writer: rude, weak, a bit pathetic, imposing, authoritative, lacking in social interaction. Oh my God, abrupt, self-centered, bad-mannered, and rather foolish, lacking sensitivity to others. And the student has not been around much at all. Okay, wow. And why did that happen? I mean, what are the reasons for those negative comments? So the reason is because there's no recognition that this request is additional work for the lecturer. So there's no recognition that the request can be imposing on the lecturer's time. And assuming that the lecturer is obliged to grant the request, okay? Inappropriate language given the student-professor relationship and the nature of the request. So if we think of, if we think back of the three social factors here, power difference. So when you write an email to your professor, don't start with hey or hello, okay, without addressing them appropriately. Think about the imposition degree of your request. Now, if you are absent from the lectures, and that's why you missed the explanation, the instruction, okay? And now you would like to have, you would like to seek help from your lecturer, you need to ask nicely and acknowledge that because you missed the lecture, you missed the instruction. So it's a trouble, to ask them to explain it to you again. So, right. Okay, so again, there's real world consequences, okay, on the way that you speak or the way that you use language. Now, if a second language learner makes a grammatical mistakes, okay, when they speak, the mistakes are usually tolerated by native speakers because they are second language learners, so they're allowed to make mistakes. That's very normal. But if they use language inappropriately, okay, that kind of error is not tolerated. It's usually interpreted as bad manner or even bad personality, okay? So that's why pragmatic is so important, right? Okay, let's move on. So yeah, I mentioned that context is a key thing, right, in pragmatics. Because pragmatics doesn't assume a one-on-one correspondence between form and meaning. Okay, so what we say literally, what we say on the surface, and what is the real meaning behind what we say, okay, can be quite different. And how can we know, what people mean? It's usually because we depend on the context, because we draw on the context in order to arrive at the intended meaning. So context plays a central role, okay, in understanding meaning and in conveying meaning. So what do I mean by context? Okay, now if you look at this sentence, I've got a headache. Okay, it can mean so many different things. Depends on who, when it is used, in what physical setting, who the speakers are. Okay, where the conversation takes place as well. Okay, so if a patient said, I've got a headache to a doctor, it means I need a prescription. Okay, he's complaining about his health status. But if a mother say that to her son, it may mean turn down the music, your music is too loud, that's why I've got a headache. Okay, if two friends are talking together, maybe because they had a party, okay, and then now they feel a headache. Or it could be, like a refusal of invitation. So if someone asks you out and you say, I've got a headache, it may mean that I can't go out with you, right? So depending on the context, okay, the same utterance can carry so many different meanings. So again, pragmatics does not assume a one-on-one match or relationships between language form and functions, but it is concerned with accounting, explaining the processes that give rise to a particular interpretation of an utterance that is used in a particular context. Okay, so what do we mean when we say context? That different things. Okay, so context means who are the speakers, who are the hearers, who are the participants. Okay, context also refers to the language that they use, the structures, the sentences, the precise sentences that they say, or the physical environment of the utterance, meaning where it takes place. Okay, so is it like, does the conversation take place at a doctor's office, a clinic, okay, or in a school context, or at a party? So the physical context. The social environment of the utterance, meaning the social context. So does it take place in New Zealand versus in Indonesia, right? So different social or different societies have different rules of communication or different norms of politeness, different norms concerning or different convention concerning, taboos, what you can say, what you cannot say, for example, and as well as the linguistic environment of the utterance, meaning, the discourse, the wider discourse in which the utterance occurs. Okay. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this conversation, all right, between a few people. And then if you just look at the conversation, can you tell who the speakers are, how well they know each other? Okay, but just on the data in the context. And what is a physical context? What is a social context? And what background knowledge the speaker share? Okay, and how do the speaker make use of the context? And the share background knowledge in order to understand each other and contribute to the conversation. All right, so I give you a minute to look at the conversation here. Okay, so finished reading. All right. Okay, can you tell me, whether what do you think about the conversation? Do you think that the people know each other well, or they're just strangers? Are they friends? Are they strangers? How do they use, like different kinds of context in order to, contribute to the conversation and to understand each other? Any ideas? Anyone? Or is it too difficult? All right. Okay, so if you look at the conversation, right, you can see that it has all the signs of an exchange between people who know each other quite well. Okay, why is it? Because you can see that they're joking and they're teasing each other, right? And their language is kind of like informal, right? And they assume a great deal of interpersonal knowledge, right? They know each other. Okay, so if you look at line 2, for example, when DM say, is it? All right, so is it here refer to AF statement that it is hot in the room? Okay, and then DM say, oh, and then AF say, yeah, really, and are you shutting down this lovely sunshine, right? And DM say, oh, it's getting in my eyes. All right, and then AF say, oh no, and CM say, yeah, not used to that, are you? So like kind of like teasing each other, right? And that here means getting, like having the, like, that refers to what? That refers to it's getting in my eyes, right? And this lovely sunshine. Okay, so and then no, what's that? Psycholinguistic. So DM say to AF, yeah, what's that? So that here is a demonstrative, right? And it's it refer to a book or a lecture notes that AF is carrying, perhaps. So yeah, and then AF say, yeah, I have difficulty getting my brain going first thing in the morning, and then DM say, she certainly fills it up, doesn't she? So who is she? She got lots of things to tell you, I'm sure. So who is she? She here is the psycholinguistic lecturer, perhaps. So you can see that there's a lot of things that are not stated explicitly here in the conversation, right? Words like that, she, it, for example. And how do people still understand that? We as outsider may not understand their conversation, but they understand that because they make use of their shared knowledge of the context, right? So I guess they all know the lecturers of psycholinguistics. That's why they can, make jokes about that, right? Or because they're in the same room, same physical context. That's why when they say that and it, that makes sense to them. But if we are not in the same room with them, we may not understand what they mean by that because we don't see them pointing to objects, right? Okay, so in summary, what is pragmatics is about and what is important in pragmatics? Pragmatic is concerned with speakers and hearer meaning, and meaning is created in interaction, right? It's not out of context. It's not the kind of meaning that is decontextualized, right? Meaning is understood only when, we look at the conversation, we look at the interaction. Context is very important, and context include both linguistics and non-linguistic aspects. Okay, so linguistic context, another term for it is context. Okay, meaning the discourse context, right? The context of the discourse where, the conversation happens, or the utterances or the sentences are used. Non-linguistic aspect, meaning interpersonal relationships, social cultural norms, physical situation, they're all important and they all contribute to our ability to make sense of what people say and their intended meaning. The choices that we make in language, right? Or the choices that we make in communication are very important, right? They are an important concern of pragmatics. There are always constraints, in using language in social actions. Who can say what to whom, and they are also important in pragmatics. Okay, and the effects of choices on co-participants are analyzed in pragmatics. So again, what is pragmatics is about? It is the study of meaning, but not meaning of decontextualized sentences. Okay, it's the meaning of speaker and hearer when they interact. Okay, and in order to understand people's meaning, their intended meaning, what they don't say, sometimes they don't say explicitly or directly, we need to draw on context. And when we say context, we mean all different things. We mean our knowledge of the person, our knowledge of our co-participants, our knowledge of the discourse context in which, like the conversation, what people have been talking so far, for example, in the conversation. We mean what we know about the society, the wider society, we mean the physical, venues or places where the conversation or where the communication happens. And in pragmatics, we are concerned with why people make certain choices of language. So what are the factors that can explain their language use? So by choices, we mean, thinking about all different factors that may affect how you use language. For example, power, distance between people, social distance between people, and degree of inconvenience that our actions can cause, or our or what we say, right, may cause to other people. So those are the constraints, in using language, and and the kind of impact that we may create with our language, on our co-participant. So what does pragmatics study, right? Because pragmatic concerns speaker meaning, right? Specifically, deriving the intended communicative messages from what is said, right, in a particular context. And in order to address that concern, pragmatics engages, the scholar in a wide variety of topics. And one major area is speech acts, and we learn about speech act next week. So speech acts are just linguistic actions what we do with language in communication. For example, we use language to make requests, to make apologies, to disagree with one another, to challenge each other, to invite, to reject, to compliment, so all different kinds of actions that we do with words. Okay. Another important topics that we also covered in this series of lectures, conversational implications, meaning implied meaning, indirect meaning, implicit meaning. So an example is, can you answer the door, please? I am in the bath. So I'm in the bath here means I can't answer the door, right? Because I'm busy doing something, right? So this is what we call, these utterance is called conversational implications, meaning implied meaning. Okay, and we are going to cover that as well. Face, okay, and politeness or impoliteness. This is a very important aspect of language use. Okay, why is it? Because we human beings are social beings, right? We don't want to offend people. We want to use language to create good relationship with other people, to maintain solidarity, to maintain harmony. So politeness is a very important aspect of language use for that reason. So keep the door open versus can you keep the door open, please? They all, they carry the same meaning in terms of, they all used to make a request, but one is more polite than the other. And why is it, right? We also look at structure of, I don't know whether we have time to see how it goes, to look at the structure of the conversation, but structure of conversation or conversation analysis is also an important part in pragmatic studies, right? It overlaps with conversation analysis. So when I say structure of conversation, I mean, how people organize their talk sequentially, what they do in each turn. So if you look at this conversation, for example, I say, okay, B say, okay. I say, I see you tomorrow. And B say, all right. And I say, bye. And B say, bye. But you can see that this is a closing down of a conversation. And in English, when people say goodbye, they don't say it abruptly. They don't just say bye, right? They usually do something else before they say goodbye. Okay, so they send each other what we call signal. Okay, so closing signals. So okay are those signaling words that send a signal to our participant that I am now closing down the conversation, and they make arrangement like I see you tomorrow, and then all right. But if you look at English textbooks, for example, many textbooks don't teach this. Okay, so we usually find a very unnatural conversation in textbooks like, hello, how are you? I'm good, fine, thank you, goodbye. That's it. That's not how people, say goodbyes in real life. Okay, because it's too abrupt. We usually have to do something before we actually finally close down the conversation. Okay, so those are important topics in pragmatics, and definitely we'll cover speech acts, politeness, conversational implications, and I hope that we also have time to talk about structure of conversation when we talk about speech acts as well. Okay. All right, so I would like you to stop and reflect a bit before we move on. I would like you to just spend like 2 minutes, make a list of social factors that influence how you interact with other people. So think about your own culture, how you interact with people in Indonesia. Okay, what kind of social factors that may affect your choice of language and what you would say to them in different situations, right? Have you noticed that you may have offended your conversational partners in the past? And what do you think caused you and your partner to feel uncomfortable? And what did you do about it? Right? So think about, maybe recall some miscommunication, right, that you have experienced in the past and reflect on why it happened. And then can you predict how pragmatics can be important in intercultural communication, and give examples and explain as well. So if you have ever experienced some intercultural communication, like speaking to a person from a different culture and you experience miscommunication, for example, then reflect on it and then explain why, what happened. All right. So 2 minutes, and then I'll call out people to contribute your ideas. Are you done? Right. So yeah, so let's share our ideas. Anyone volunteers? Or maybe Mr. Harry, if you could help me to call out the student because you know them.
Okay, ma'am. Let me help you to call on the student. Anybody who wants to volunteer to answer the question? Raihan, maybe Raihan, the most active student today. Can you give your idea regarding this question?
Yes, sir. About social factors that influence how you interact with other people. Maybe it's maybe our social roles, social status, and then in the imposition part, low degree of inconvenience and high degree of inconvenience. And I think that I ever offended other people, other person when I said something, and I thought they will feel like hurt maybe because I said something that really make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. Yes. So yes. So what about gender? Is it an important factor to consider when you communicate in your culture? Is gender an important factor? Like the way that you speak to a male fellow, a male friend versus a female friend. Is it different?
Not really, maybe in Indonesia, man.
Oh, okay.
More than we talk. Maybe age is more. What is that? Effective.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Then I'll share an example later on about gender. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. So yes, sometimes we offend people because we say, because our intended meaning may be misinterpreted, right? We don't convey our meaning effectively enough and offend people without even knowing, right? Does anyone else want to share their ideas or any experience about, intercultural communication? Have you ever experienced a communication breakdown when you speak with someone from a different cultural background than you?
I have the experience. Yes.
Yeah.
I have experience when I have a friend that's from other island from mine, and usually in their culture they will always say with high note, and in here usually when we talk we use like low note and more calm. So when my friend for the first time talked to me, I'm a little bit shocked, and I think that he good to me, which is he's not actually.
Thank you so much. Yes. So tone is also very important, right? Yes. And it happens even within the same country as well. Like, for example, in my country, people from the north tend to speak with a higher pitch compared to people in the south. So people from the south, when they communicate with people from the north, they may find it offensive. They may find that the people in the north are kind of aggressive because of their high pitch voice. Okay. So yeah, thanks so much. Yes, there's a lot of miscommunication that may happen in intercultural communication because of the different ways that people express meanings. All right. So this is a personal story told by a Japanese colleague of mine in our meeting, right? In our meeting at this convention in 2010, so many years ago. We had a group called, we have an interest section, right? Or interest group called Intercultural Communication. And we shared our personal stories. And this is what she said, she shared with us. Okay, so a young American man, approached her in a New York street and asked, "Excuse me, do you have the time?" And then she was shocked and she said, "Excuse me, I don't know you. All right, so what happened here? What do you think? What did the man mean when he say, excuse me, do you have the time? And how did the woman interpret his meaning? Any ideas? Do you have the time? What does it mean in English?
A try to flirt.
Sorry, what is it?
Maybe a young American man tried to flirt a young Japanese woman.
Ah, okay, interesting. What about other people? What do you think? What do you have the time? What does it mean? Any ideas? Okay, so if the man asks, excuse me, do you have time? All right, so do you notice the difference between the two sentences? Do you have the time versus do you have time? Okay, if the man say, excuse me, do you have time? Do you think that the meaning would be different from do you have the time? Any ideas? Actually, there's a misunderstanding here. Okay, so do you have the time just mean what time is it in English? Okay, this is what we call a conventional expression. And this is how English speakers ask about time. So do you have the time just mean what time is it? Okay, and it's different from do you have time? If do you have time, then that means that, you know, do you have time to go out, you know? So the Japanese woman here misunderstood, okay, the meaning expressed by the man. And this is because different languages have different ways of, you know, expressing meaning. Okay, so different linguistic encoding of meaning. All right. This is another example that I've written down in the handout. And this is about gender differences. Okay, so a second language student compliments his English teacher as she enters the classroom. You are wearing a lovely dress. It fits you. And the teacher seems very unhappy. Okay, so what do you think might have gone wrong here? This is an example from a study by a very well-known professor in social linguistics, right? So what might have gone wrong here? Anyone? Any ideas?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The teacher thought that her student thought her clothes were ugly. So the teacher seems unhappy.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much. Interesting interpretation. What about other people? What do you think? I'll tell you later, right? But it's very interesting. It can show that, you know, meaning can be interpreted so differently by different people, right? And any ideas? Any other comments or other answers?
I think the students try to insulting the teacher.
Okay, interesting. Why do you think so?
Because the teacher's reaction is unhappy.
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So basically, you can see that there's miscommunication here. All right. What the student is trying to do is just to show politeness. Okay, by complimenting the dress of the teacher, but the teacher is not happy for two things. The first thing is of the word fits. It fits you. So it's about physical shape when you say something fits. So it's different. Fit is different from match, right? When you say it matches or it goes well with your, I don't know, your hats or your jewelry, for example, it's different. But when you say, when you use the word fits, it means the physical shape. And okay, and there's a gender difference here because the student is a male and the teacher is a female. And in American culture, okay, this kind of compliment, you know, when the social status is unequal, okay, and the gender is different, this kind of compliment is considered inappropriate. And in fact, the teacher commented that if the compliment came from a female student, it would have been more acceptable than it came from a male student. All right, so it's about politeness, it's about norms of appropriateness. It's considered inappropriate when a male, lower status student, speaker, okay, deliver that kind of, or paid that kind of compliment. All right, so you can see that what happens here in cross-cultural communication is meaning can be misinterpreted, in at different levels. Okay, and in pragmatics, we distinguish between social pragmatics and pragmalinguistics. Social pragmatic is to do with social norms, meaning our social, social conventions or social codes of language use, norms that govern, pragmatic behavior, or norms that governs how we use language. Okay, so in American culture, for example, a male lower status speaker is not supposed to give a compliment on a female higher status speaker's appearance, for example, because it's considered inappropriate. Or in certain culture, asking personal question is considered inappropriate. So you can't ask people, how old are you, or are you married, do you have any children, or how much you earn, okay, a month. So those kind of questions are not considered appropriate in certain cultures, for example. So that's to do with social pragmatics, meaning, social norms that govern, how we should use language, what we can say, what we cannot say, to whom, in what context. And then we also have pragmalinguistics, okay, meaning the linguistic forms or structures, the grammatical means, or the lexical means, okay, so words, vocabulary, okay, and grammar, okay, all these linguistic resources that we use for expressing meaning and our speech intentions, okay, so it's through language form. So in English, for example, when we say, do you have the time, we mean what time is it, right? So it is to do with pragmalinguistic. And if you don't know this conventional expression in English, then you may misinterpret people's intention, okay, because you don't know grammar, right? Or in English, we say, there you go, to express our agreement, for example. And if we don't know these conventions of expression, then we may not understand, okay, our co-participants' intention. So misinterpretation, right, can happen at two levels in cross-cultural communication. At the social pragmatic level, it happens because of the different norms of appropriateness, different norms of politeness. So what is considered appropriate, what is considered polite, okay, may be different from, like from one culture to another culture. At the pragmalinguistic level, okay, miscommunication may happen because different languages have different ways of expressing, okay, meaning. All right. Does it make sense so far? All right. Okay. So that's why in language teaching, right, it's very important that we focus on pragmatics. Okay, so when we teach language, we don't only teach grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation, because having the knowledge of grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation can help us to make correct sentences. Okay, but it may not be enough to help us to communicate appropriately and effectively, convey our meaning appropriately. So yeah, so pragmatics competence or pragmatic ability means, being able to communicate appropriately in social interaction and to go beyond the literal meaning of what is said or written in order to interpret the intended meanings, assumptions, purposes, and goals, and the kind of actions that are being performed. So it's very important. Now, if we think about, different language skill, okay, as listener, we need to interpret what is said as well as what is not said and what may be communicated non-verbally. As readers, we need to be able to comprehend written messages, identifying the rhetorical structure of the message and catching subtle indications of tone and attitude in the communication. As speakers, we need to know how to say what we want to say with the proper politeness, directness, and formality. Okay, we also need to know what not to say at all and what to communicate. As writers, we need to know how to write our message intelligibly, and again, paying attention to the level of politeness, directness, and formality, as well as considering issues of rhetorical structures. All of these, okay, are to do with pragmatics and pragmatics competence. So that's why when we teach a second language, I don't know whether you are training as language teachers or not, or are you linguistic students? But anyway, when we learn English, right, as a second language, and when we communicate in English as a second language, those are the abilities that we need to be able to develop in order to communicate effectively. Now, grammatical competence can help you to communicate accurately, but it may not be enough, right, to help you to convey your intention, your communicative intention, and your meaning appropriately, okay, to your interlocutors. I'm not sure if you know about communicative competence, but if we think about how and where pragmatics fit in with language teaching, and we think about, you know, like in the 1960s, okay, many decades ago, what was considered the most important in language teaching is grammar or linguistic competence, okay? But from the 1970s onward, we're concerned with not only linguistic competence, but also what we call social linguistic competence. And social linguistic competence is pragmatic competence, right? If we look at, you know, different models of communicative competence, for example, the one that is proposed by Canal and Swen in 1980, okay, so they say that in order to communicate effectively in a second language, you need to have 3 kinds of competence. The first one is grammatical competence, meaning knowledge of grammar, knowledge of vocabulary, knowledge of sound system, how to articulate sounds and use intonation patterns correctly. And you need strategic competence, meaning how to compensate for your lack of fluency in a second language. So when, let's say, when you speak to someone from a different culture and they don't understand you, you know how to ask questions, how to ask for clarification, how to rephrase yourself, repeat yourself, so that, you know, you can repair miscommunication. And then you have social linguistic competence, which is pragmatic competence, okay? And then that model is developed further in Canal 1983, where social linguistic competence is divided further into social linguistic competence and discourse competence. Discourse competence means, do you know how to produce coherent, okay, text or speeches or discourse, how to connect your ideas and link your ideas together so that you can communicate your ideas in an effective manner. And then in the latest model of communicative competence, social linguistic competence is divided further into social linguistic competence and actional competence. And social linguistic competence here is to do with social pragmatics, meaning your understanding of norms, okay, and convention regarding language use. And actional competence is to do with pragmalinguistics, meaning your knowledge of language resources for expressing meaning, okay, for encoding meaning. Social linguistic competence would allow you to evaluate what is appropriate and what is not appropriate to say to whom in what context, whereas actional competence allows you to choose language accordingly in order to express your meaning, you know, as intended. So actional competence would mean knowing that, do you have the time? It's not a flirt. Do you have the time means what time is it? Whereas do you have time could be, you know, do you want to go out with me? All right. Okay. I hope that it makes sense so far. All right. So I would like you to stop and reflect again. So in light of your knowledge, okay, of what pragmatics involve, discuss its importance, right, in the field of language teaching. So does the language teacher, for example, need to know about pragmatics? How about the learner? Okay, give examples to illustrate your answers, and think about English textbooks that you have been using so far. What aspect of language do they focus on? You know, do they focus on phonology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, and give specific examples to illustrate your answers. Okay, how well do you think they have developed, the learner's communicative competence? I think to make you speak more, I would again maybe I ask Mr. Harry's help to put you in breakout room so that you have like about 5 minutes speaking to one another. Is that okay? We could have like more than 2 people in one group, maybe
Okay.
3 people. Yeah, thank you.
Should I create the breakout room?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, if you could do that, that would be good.
Boleh. Okay. Should I add the room? Should I open all the room right
Yeah,
now, ma'am?
thank you. Yep.
Okay. Okay, students, please go to the room right now. I have already created for you. Please join the room, the breaking room right now.
Okay. Thank you. I will just visit different rooms, okay, to listen in people's discussions.
Are you okay, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you. I will just listen in. Okay, like room 1. Okay.
So, student, I still see some of you are still in the main room. Please go to the breakout room now. I still see some student here. Hello, student. I can still see some student here in the main room. Please, you can go to the breakout room now to have a discussion with your friend, with your partner. Aduh. Kok udah join wi? Waduh. Hello, students. Can you hear my voice? Bisa dengar suaranya Mr. Hari?
Can, sir.
Silahkan join ke breakout room now, sekarang ya. And then discuss with your group or with your partner regarding to the question that has already provided in the slide before.
quite few people are still outside of the main session. So we are waiting for people to come back to the main session before we do the next activity.
Yeah, I think everyone should have been in the main room right now, ma'am, because the breakout room is already off.
Closed.
Yeah, it's already
Okay.
closed.
Right. Okay, good. All right. So,
No.
yes. So
Yes.
what I'm going to do now is to get you to watch a short video, okay, and then answer the question, to show how well you understand pragmatics and what it is about. All right. So I'm going to share the sound. Give me a minute, and then hopefully we can have some minutes at the end for Q&A. Does it work?
That's work perfectly, ma'am.
Thank you. So I share the sound. It should be fine now. All right. So let me open. Okay. Right. So this is the one.
Want to see how it's going? Oh, it's going okay. Oh, good. Here, let me help you out. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Wow. Is that a new suede jacket? It looks really expensive. Yeah. guess. Just get your nails done. Yes, baby, but this is all I have, okay? Okay, thanks. Happy holidays. Here's your joy. Thank you.
All right. So I will just play it one more time so that everyone can hear it well. All right. So this is the situation, right? Phoebe is collecting money for a Christmas charity in front of a department store, and Monica comes to meet her. So this is a conversation between Phoebe and Monica.
Hey, come see how it's going. Well, it's going okay. Oh, good. Here, let me help you out. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Wow. Is that a new suede jacket? It looks really expensive. Yeah, I guess. Just get your nails done. Yes, baby, but this is all I have, okay? Okay, thanks. Happy holidays. Here's your joy. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let me go back to the. Oh yeah. So this is the conversation. Yeah. So Phoebe, hey, and Monica, I come to see how it's going. And Phoebe, oh, it's going okay. And then Monica say, oh, good. Here, let me help you out. And then she gave out some coins, right, to Phoebe. And Phoebe say, oh, thanks. And Monica, yeah. And then Phoebe say, oh, wow, I think your little jacket is really expensive. And then Monica looks very uncomfortable. Yeah, I guess. And then Phoebe say, and then at that point, right, Monica also get a few more coins to Phoebe. And Phoebe continued, just get your nails done. And then Monica gave her some more coins and say, yeah, Phoebe, but this is all that I have, okay? And then Phoebe say, yeah, thank you. Happy holidays. Here is your joy, okay? So those are the questions, right? Okay, so those are the questions. The first question is, what do you think Phoebe means when she say, wow, I think your little jacket is really expensive? And what made you think that was what she meant? And then the next question is, how did Monica respond? And did her response show that she understood what Phoebe meant? Okay, what do you think Phoebe meant when she said, just get your nails done? And what made you think that was what she meant? Okay, and how did Monica respond? Did her response show that she understood what Phoebe meant? Okay, do you think that she was being direct in conveying the meaning? And why was she direct or indirect? Okay, and what kind of context did Phoebe and Monica use to make sense of what was communicated? And then what kinds of context did you use to make sense of their conversation? So this is to summarize what we've learned so far about meaning, speaker's meaning, intended meaning, directness, context. All right, so any answers? Any thought?
Maybe Phoebe said, well, I think your little jacket is really expensive. Like she quit Monica.
She what? Sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. She what?
She quit Monica maybe because she looking for coin in the front of store, but he wore a expensive jacket, so it seems weird.
Oh, so meaning, okay, thank you. So does it mean that she liked how much Monica gave her, or she didn't like it? Did she think that Monica gave enough to charity, or did she think that it's not enough?
I think she quit Monica for like looking for a coin, but wearing a expensive suit, and she doesn't like it all. Maybe.
All right. Okay. Thanks. What made you think that was what she meant, and how did Monica respond? And did her response show that she understood what Phoebe meant? Any other comments or any other answer? Sekar, what do you think? Can I just call, people? I mean, I see a few names here, so I just call people out to give the answer. Sekar, what do you think? Okay, I will just show the conversation again here, all right? Or maybe if you don't want to answer the question, then just give your comments on the conversation. What do people mean? What happened in the conversation in general, and how do you know? And what kind of context is it? How do people use how do people use context in order to make sense of what their friends say in the conversations? Any ideas? Any comments?
Hello, guys. Is there anyone who want to share the opinions? Septiana Putri, maybe you want to share your idea? Hello.
No, it's okay. All right. So, I mean, if you can think of, the context, right? The context is Phoebe is trying to collect money for Christmas charity, right? And Monica came along to meet her. And then if you recall what happened in the video, and Monica just gave out a few coins. And obviously, Phoebe was not happy about that, right? And she said, oh, well, your little jacket is really expensive. So maybe the intended meaning is, but then, like you were wearing an expensive jacket, meaning you have money. And why did you just give a few coins? All right. And obviously, Monica seems to get the meaning because she looked very uncomfortable and she said, oh, yeah, I guess. And then she gave out a few more coins. And then Phoebe said, just get your nails done. Right. So that's another comment that, oh, you have money to get your nails done. Okay. But you gave me so little money. And Monica seems to understand it as well because she gave out more money. And she said, yeah, Phoebe, but this is all I have. Okay. All right. So you can see that although people don't say, I mean, in conversation, right, even though sometimes you don't say things directly, okay, we still get understood by other people. And why does it happen? Because people draw on, okay, all kinds of different contexts in order to get, to arrive at the intended meaning. So that's all about pragmatics. That's all, what pragmatic is concerned with, okay? Speakers meaning in context, all right? Okay, which may be different from literal meaning of utterances and sentences. Okay, so that's all. So we still have some time for question and answer, for Q&A. Maybe I give the floor back to Mr. Harry. Over to you, Mr. Harry, if you want to conduct the Q&A session. I mean, I'm happy to answer the students' questions if there's any.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen, for delivering the material regarding pragmatics and understanding about it. So, students, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question regarding to the material that has been shared, that has been talked with Dr. Nguyen, you are pleased to share now. We still have about maybe 5 minutes to go before we close the session of visiting scholar program. Oh, Dr. Nguyen, I think it's already the prayer time here in Indonesia, so you can hear the adhan right now.
I see. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I think we are, yeah. All right, so no worries. I'll see you next week then. But if you have any question, can you just send your question to Mr. Hari, and you can collect the question and send it to me. Right?
Yes, I will facilitate it to you. If they have the question, maybe they can send to me, or maybe next meeting, next week, you can prepare your question regarding to the material for today and also for the material for the next week. Is that okay,
Sure.
Dr. Nguyen?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for Dr. Nguyen for delivering the information for all the students here. I hope that everyone here can get the What is that? The new insight, new knowledge regarding to the pragmatic. Me myself also today have a new insight regarding to the pragmatic. So everyone should be understand pragmatic, or the communication will be, what is that, miscommunication or something like that. So next time when I have a communication with Dr. Nguyen, I should be more careful when talking and having the chat with Dr. Nguyen, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for today,
yeah.
Dr. Nguyen. We will see you again next week. I am so sorry that I have to finish this session for today, since we have already the 3 o'clock, ma'am, actually here. We already have the prayer times. I have already adhan in Islamic meaning here.
Understand.
Yes.
All right.
I think,
so yeah.
Yes.
Thank you and see you.
Yes, I think
Bye.
thank you so much. And
you.
see you again next week. Thank you, Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Yes, bye-bye, Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
Oke, adik-adik semuanya, thank you so much for today. Next week, please, if you have any question, kalau ada pertanyaan, silahkan disampaikan ya. Silahkan disiapkan pertanyaan untuk besok. Tugasnya buat kalian menyiapkan pertanyaan untuk Dr. Nguyen. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Bisa dipahami ya. Jadi besok jangan, do not only be passive listener, passive participant. I hope that everyone will be more active for next week. Are you okay with that?
Yes,
sir.
Okay. Nggak cuma oke aja lo ya, yes aja lo ya. Tapi beneran, awas kalau enggak kalian. Nanti tak catat nanti kalian ya. Tak laporin ke Bu Zuriah nanti, biar nilai pragmatiknya nanti di scoring. Oke. Thank you so much for today. I hope you guys having good time, good understanding from Dr. Nguyen. We'll see you again next week. I think that's all. Let's just finish our session today by reciting Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillah.